So here we are. I've broken down the restorative practices skills into about 6 different core skills that we would really use in a school a lot. And some of these are kind of things that, what I call them, you might do other reading and other folks call them different things, and that's fine. And I'll tell you, the first several years when I was learning about this, I just, don't tell me what it's called. I just want to do it. It was overwhelming. But at this point now, I think it is helpful to know what you're kind of using and why. And particularly the first one, the community building circles. That is the real one that we're going to talk about today. And it's the foundation of all restorative practices. It is all about building community with every kid in every class. It's not just for select few. It's not intrusive. It's less structure, less planning than some of the other things on this spectrum. And you would do this more frequently as compared to something like a restorative conference, which is like after something really big happened, maybe the kid was suspended and he's coming back, or we did that like when a kid set fire to a trash can, in a bathroom, and the fire department was called and the police were called. And so we did a circle with the police, the fire department, the parents, the kid, the teacher that put the fire out. Everybody was there. So that takes a lot of planning, and that's more rare, right? So you would build community in a circle as well in your classroom. So let's talk about how to do it. So what is a community circle? Some of you might have heard morning meeting, restorative circles, Socratic circle, just different. I've heard connection time, community time. It's old school. In fact, we probably all did it when we were in kindergarten. You sit in a circle, knee to knee, no desks in front of you, no furniture. When you're older, kids would probably just sit in a circle in chairs. You take turns speaking about some sort of topic, like maybe you're collaborating on an activity, or you're talking about like norms and expectations you want to have for your class, or maybe there's something going on and you're talking about it. You're building relationships, solving problems. That's what community circles do in a classroom setting. And then everyone has equal power in the group, even the teacher. The teacher, and talk about what your role is. You're the circle keeper. You're not the boss. You're just part of the community, so you participate too. So that is what it is. So if you would like to do a circle with your class, this is where you start. The first thing you do is you're going to have the guidelines set up, which is exactly where we start with PBIS as well, right? We have our expectations first, and we're really clear about what those are. And that's important because if we're not holding true to those guidelines and those expectations, then kids won't feel safe to share. If we say only one person is speaking at a time and you have to hold the talking piece to speak, and we allow all these other kids to giggle in the corner, these kids over here aren't going to share. So it's really important that we hold kids to those expectations. You're going to choose a meaningful talking piece, and if you can do a centerpiece, that's great too. I'm going to break that down and tell you how that works. You're going to pick your topic for a circle. What are you going to talk about, right? And then you want to think about your classroom, the physical space. Do you have room to do this? And then plan the structure. How's it going to go? Who's talking first, next? What are you going to ask? That kind of thing. So the first one, prepare circle guidelines. What you see here is some pretty standard. A lot of people have something similar to this. Respect the talking piece. Everyone listens. Everyone has a turn. I was in a high school classroom in Pittsburgh recently, and they called the kids said, well, one microphone, that's what they said. So only one person talks. And then you want to speak from the heart. So you're going to speak your truth. Listen from the heart. So we're not judging people in this space. And that's why it's going to be good to have, we'll talk about like the centerpiece and the talking piece, that kids can be safe to do this. Trust that you know what to say. No need to rehearse. So you're not worried that, it's going to be my turn and 5 people. Oh no, 4 more people. 3, what am I going to say? 2 more people. Yikes. You just tell them to relax. They're going to know what to say. You don't actually give the questions to kids in advance. Nobody studies it. It's just there's no right answer. How do you feel about it right now, right? And then you say just enough without feeling rushed. Some people will say like share the air. This is a more positive way to say that, but you will get some kids that tend to go on, but they get better at it. They get better at succinct language. And in a later training, we're going to talk about what do we do for language learners and students maybe with some other language delays and how beneficial this actually could be for them. Choosing a talking piece, not hard. I often grab something on my desk. And a centerpiece is also something that you could do. So a centerpiece, you'll see in a lot of pictures, people doing circles or something kind of in the middle of the floor. And that's because it's sort of a symbol of togetherness. I think really it's about sitting around a campfire, which is how we all started in society, or not even society, in our communities. Something to look at, often it'll be, the centerpiece might be a rug, and I've seen like a class picture, flowers, I've seen the mascot, maybe a flag that represents like some of the students in the class or the teacher, things that matter to you. So we're not appropriating something from another culture because it's cool. It really needs to be symbolic of your own community as a class, if that makes sense. A talking piece generally is something the kids like to hold. It can be symbolic. Something that they, often we put like a few in the middle and then they can pick what they want to do. I've had like different kinds of like cool stones, a seashell from a important trip. And it's okay if something is personal to you, because when you're in circle, you're there as an individual, just like the rest of the kids. And so that's what's really important, is that you are present with them in that way. So you're going to choose a talking piece or have some options in the for the kids to pick from. Next thing, you're going to pick a topic. At the beginning of the year, you're going to make these shorter probably, and you're going to pick a low risk topic. Low risk versus high risk is kind of important. You're not going to start out the year talking about what people think of divorce, right? Low risk questions are things like, what's your favorite color? Who's your favorite TikTok or YouTuber or influencer? Kids are used to talking about that kind of thing. So you start with low risk, you can kind of inch it up a little bit, and you move into more high risk kind of questions later. And that's something as you build trust. Trust is built by kids adhering to those guidelines. And we're going to talk about kind of what do you do? What's your role to keep people on track? I think also academic circles can be really good because that's a good way to practice the norms at a very low risk. You could do things, just anything for deeper understanding. Everyone, we're going to go in a circle, name one thing you remember about factoring. Here's a high school example. Let's go around, give one disadvantage to capitalism. For younger grades, we've been reading Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Remember one thing that happened last week when we read. And that way you get everybody to participate, right? Because who said we need to learn sitting in rows with our backs to each other? Kids will engage better if they're sitting in a circle. And then, of course, any current issues. As you get going with this, you can talk about different issues that are coming up. I mean, we had to do circles after a student died at a middle school. We did circles after the fires, and we were out of school for 2 weeks, something like that. We did circles after we had earthquakes, community violence. This is when you can also talk about current issues. So those are kind of the topic, kind of what you want to think about, what you want to do. Consider your physical space. You want to think about that all of your students should be able to see each other. So one thing some teachers will say, if they're sitting like crisscross, like your knees should be touching, or you can do kind of shoulder to shoulder. As long as the kids can see everyone, it may be an oblong, that happens, and that's okay. It's great if you can avoid having furniture in the center. Some people with older kids, they'll just go outside. And I remember at one of the high schools I was working with, they just started every class Wednesday mornings would do circles in the whole school of 2000. And so many teachers just hadn't quite figured out how to move furniture. So everybody was outside on the grass, and it was really cool. It was neat to see. So that's fine. Eventually you'll get there. You can train the kids to move things around, and they can get very good at it and very fast. I've seen it done in 30 seconds flat. Kids move chairs, scooch tables, and they're sitting down. I've seen some teachers will do something like play a song, and by the end of Mission Impossible, they all need to be sitting down in the circle. That kind of thing is a lot of fun. So, but you can practice it, time it. Hey, everybody, that took 1 minute. Let's try to get it to 30 seconds next week. And you can kind of do that, which is a great routine to learn. Plan the circle structure. So here is kind of how it works. You don't need every single element necessarily, but you could do a circle in as short as, really, I've seen I have one video for the elementary folks. It's 11 minutes from when the kids sit down to being done. It does not have to take over your whole day. But if you have a big issue to talk about and there's been bullying going on in the class, it might be longer, right? So you can kind of gauge that based on what you need to talk about, but you always start with welcome the kids. Sometimes you'll say, like, today we're going to talk about like an opening. Then you go over your guidelines. This is the talking piece and speak from the heart. So you're going to go over all that with the kids. After that, then you do a check-in. And so we did a check-in and a welcome and guidelines when everyone logged on before we started recording today. I welcomed you, and then I told you about the way we were going to run the meeting today. And then I did a quick check-in, and you said your name, and you said what your role was and what you were hoping to get out of today's training, and that was a check-in. Sometimes you might ask the kids how they're feeling on a check-in. If your feeling was a color, what color would you be? A nice one if you have large classes is to do scaling. If you are, tell me on your hand how you're feeling today. 1 means terrible, no good, very bad day. 5 is the best day ever. Show me your hand. And then everyone just looks. And everybody, or they all kind of flash their number, right? As you go around, that way you can see who's a 1, you can see who's a 3, who's a 5, and that helps everybody see kind of how people are feeling. And that's a fast way. So these are ways that large classes, if you have 35 students, you can do a quick check-in. You can do an icebreaker. I don't always do icebreakers. I do them at the beginning of the year because I want this to be fun and I want the kids to have like a good time and a good association with circles. And things like where the wind blows, things where kids have to stand up, switch seats, that kind of thing is a lot of fun. We can do a whole other session on different games that you could play. I also pull out the icebreakers when I'm having behavior problems, which seems opposite. But if I have a group of boys that are just too cool for this, I start to make circle just way more fun. And so they're more motivated to participate. Like maybe I'll sit through this because we're going to play a game. But generally, when this is really a time in which kids are sharing and they are their real selves, they want to be there. Discussion rounds would follow. And that's kind of the meat, the work of the circle. And you have like 2 or 3 questions that you would have everybody go around and answer in order. And that's kind of what, we need to talk about this and how am I going to do it? And so you break it down into like different questions. And I'll share at the end some resources that I like to use when I'm stuck on how to approach that. What kind of circle should I do? And then you do a quick checkout. Again, if my feeling was a weather pattern right now, what would it be? Partially cloudy, sunny, or show me on your hand, something like that would be fine. You just really want to see how are they feeling? Tell me 1 word about how you're feeling now, or 1 appreciation. Just get everyone's voice back in the room. There's something really kind of healing about closure in that sense. And you're kind of seeing, is everybody okay? And then you close it. The closing is more of a ritual that is important, and it's not hokey. Kids need to know that we're done with this space and now we're going back to our desk. We need to know that this is a special time that's closing, that's ending right now, and now we're moving into something else. It's also important. So people will do things like have a chant, like a class chant. I know some that do that. A hand clap, a funny hand clap. Some people will read an important quote that has something to do with what they talked about. And then some folks will just do some deep breathing, some mindfulness at the end. And all of those are great. It's really just the structure of we're going to kind of center ourselves and we're going to switch to something else now. So that's how you're going to run a circle.